Hey, welcome back everyone. Rob here from Ram Studio Comics. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about using some brush pens. In this case, it's the Tombow, however you say that. I'll make sure to link in the description box below. And I'm going to demonstrate these pens as well as using my Micron and a little bit of white out there. But mainly it's about the brush pens. So feel free to comment in the section below. Let us know what type of art supplies you use for your own traditional art. And more of these videos will be on the way. So without further ado, let's jump on in. Okay, so the first thing I'll do will be soft erase this back. So I'll take a kneaded eraser, stretch that out, get it all cleaned up. This is a Prismacolor kneaded eraser. And just kind of glance over this and soften up the lines here. Just like that. And these are two different sizes. I'll start with the fine point. And just really because I think that predominantly that's what I would use most of the way through this. So, but the beauty of brush pens is you can get this nice thick to thin pretty quickly. So you have to do less of the, resculpting of the lines, which is nice. Like the chin's a good example. You're going to put a nice heavy line on the base of the chin. I used to use these quite a bit when I did my first couple books with Aerial Assault. I inked the entire books with brush pens. Well, I shouldn't say the entire book. I used microns and brush pens. And now I kind of use pit pens instead of microns, but I still have microns as well. But I don't do a whole lot of traditional inking anymore. So I figured this would be a good example to show you since I just got these pens and I really like the way they feel. Now keep in mind I'm using Bristol Board Smooth. It's a Strathmore 200 series. That's going to make a pretty big difference on the line quality you get. So for instance, if you were to ink on something like a 400 series sketch pad, it's going to look quite different. So just be aware of that paper. The paper has a pretty dramatic difference on what you're going to get with your line clarity. So I can get a pretty thin line with this, which I like. The other thing I like about brush pens and brushes in general is the fills are quicker. Now this is more of a fine point, so I would probably switch to a heavier brush or even the thicker pen that came with this set and do more of the fills. But a lot of times what I find myself doing is switching to Sharpies because I don't want to waste, if I got nicer pens, I kind of reserve those for the lines that I like to make with those. And one thing I could say that, traditional inking, does better than digital for me is it's a lot quicker representation of what you see is what you get. So with digital, don't get me wrong, I love digital inking, but what happens is you can really misgauge what you're looking at. Where with traditional inking, it's a better representation of, again, what you see is what you get. You can gauge your line thickness a lot more effectively. Now it does still take a little bit of guesswork because you still have to reduce the size for the most part. Not always, but most of the time you're working at a larger scale and it's being reduced for a page. Maybe not if you're doing a digital comic, I guess, but generally you're working off reduction. So there is that little bit of translation there that you got to be aware of. But for digital, it's real easy to make lines too thin, to zoom in too far. You got to really be careful of that. And I'm trying to make as many of these little marks as I can with this pen just to really test it out. I haven't used it a lot so far. That was kind of a mistake. I don't think there would be two sets of lines next to the one another right there, but hey, that's what whiteout's for. Now obviously that's a big plus to digital. Whiteout is way easier. But there's pros and cons to everything. But these brushes feel really natural. They feel really good. I haven't used them that much, so I feel like I could get a lot better with them with some real practice. And I would still probably render with my pit pens or microns as far as cross-hatching goes. But for the rest of it, I would probably use this right here. And you really want to test different brushes and pens and things together. You know, crow quill if you can get it. I could never get the hang of a crow quill, um, but you know, you want that variation in your work. The more you can mix that stuff up together, it just makes the work look more interesting. It's the same reason why I try to generate different lines as I'm going here. So I try to purposely, you know, put two lines in place of areas where there's just one line. Obviously mix up the line weight quite a bit as well. But you just want this line variation so it looks, you know, more interesting, more detailed, more stylized, things like that. All right, let me try the heavier one. So this one, I think I would use this more for, you know, obviously this is all comparative to the size of the artwork, but I would use this more for outlining, you know, edging the work and putting line weight around the characters. I would definitely gravitate more towards this one. But again, it's all comparative to the size of the artwork, because if you're working on a larger piece of artwork, then a larger brush is, you know, still pretty usable on that for more of the interior work. But in this case, it's kind of a heavier brush, so I find it a little bit trickier to get the thinner lines that I want. Not impossible, but I got to be very, you know, light-handed with it. But equally well, it would be good for fills because of that as well. But as I mentioned before, I tend to save these types of brushes and use Sharpies and other disposable brushes for my fills. Something like that. And again, it's real easy to kind of add to it and make a heavier line where you need it. And let's tilt this a little bit, get some of the hair. I've also got this kind of glare going through here. Forgive me, I rotate a lot when I'm inking. But yeah, I like it. It's got a very organic feeling to this brush, to both of these brushes. And I think I will be ordering more of these. So I just ordered this one pack for now and make sure I like them. And I've got some other ones coming as well. So I'm going to be doing more of this where I test a few of these out for you. Just because I want there to be a nice variety on the channel here where you can get tips on digital, traditional, all that fun stuff. Even though I don't do as much of this, maybe it'd be good for you in the sense that if you're a newcomer to this, then me not being as well versed might be a good idea, because you can see it more from somebody like you that's trying to learn. So I think it can be tough at times when you see somebody that's already really proficient at it. It seems like, well, you know, I can't get those same effects, but you got to remember, time heals all things, and you know, practice with this type of stuff is so integral. Like, you just have to make lots of mistakes with it. Even today, I inked a couple, you know, loose sketches even before I got to this point to kind of warm up to the way the bristles, or I don't think you'd even call those bristles, but the way the brush itself feels against the paper. It just, it just takes some practice. So be ready for that. Okay, and I got another little glare right here that kind of put in. I think that probably would have been better to draw with a pit pen. Yeah, not sure I like that glare, but maybe time for more whiteout. Okay, so let's connect the lines back here. Make sure I'm on camera. Yeah, nice flow to this pen tip though. I'm really impressed with it. Again, it reminds me of the ones I used to use for comics back in the day that I could no longer find. I don't know what happened. I can't even remember the brand. It's been so long, but that happens with with pens and with brushes. They just some of them get discontinued, and if you're relying on it, that kind of leaves you at a bit of an issue. You got to decide on something else, but obviously there's plenty of different products out there to choose from. And at this point, I switch over to the microns to get like the glasses and some of the rendering. One problem is that I started pulling these microns out of my art bag and they were dried up, so I had to throw a couple of them away. So yeah, FYI, make sure to do that before you start to record a video. It's a little bit easier. And so yeah, I do these generally for anything that I need more of a consistent line, obviously. And then the video skipping just a tad, so forgive me for that. But for the most part, all the content's here, so I figured I should still share it with you. Okay, so I found my 0.8 micron. You see that? Hope you can. You see how dirty my fingers are? Hope you can. Okay, so let's get the glasses done. So I tend to find it a bit easier to use these, and I probably should be using one of those little guides or whatever, but not today, folks. Today we wing it. Adventure is my middle name. No, actually it's Alfonso, but hey, don't tell nobody. Okay, so like something like that. Get the little piece across there that I don't even think I drew that. And I guess I'll even get in the iris. Something like that. Nice and easy, little circles. That is a really shaky line, forgive me. And what else? So let me go back to the Tombow, the thinner one. Wait, this one. And let's get in a little bit of, I just feel like this line here is too thin. Probably just put a shadow in there. I think the eyes always look better when you add a little bit of shadow right to the inner edges, inner side edges. It kind of helps to convey that roundedness in there if you do that just right. I don't know if I did, but hey. And then you didn't see me do this part because my stupid camera setup started messing up. Now, obviously, calling a camera and a computer stupid is a bit silly, but I always like to do it. I like to take my anger out on my devices. Call me crazy. But I think it'll give me an opportunity to add more shadow right here. Something like that. And then if I want to render that, now keep in mind too, I think I've already mentioned this, but I'll say it again. I don't render everything with those brush pens. You can do a lot of it with it. You definitely want to experiment and see what things you can get the effect you're looking for with those, but then also mix it up. Use some of the the microns or pit pens or whatever. Now generally for this, let me see, I'll render a bit under the neck here. And I can still get those thick to thin lines, those tapered lines. I just have to kind of construct them a bit more, like that. And then I might even switch to a little bit thinner one. Let's try a 0.0. What is it? Even a 0.1. So this is obviously a lot thinner. But what I like about doing this is I feel like the rendering looks nicer if I mix up these lines a little bit. Something like that. It's kind of pretty heavy, isn't it? Yeah, I feel like it's a little heavy for this style of character. But again, I wanted to show you a little bit of variation here. And how I might experiment and try new things. Oh, and then also, since I really didn't want this line, this double line right here, this is a whiteout pen I really like. It's a Uniball Signo. Hope you can see that. And we can fix this little error right there. So yeah, these are pretty nice. You can generally get some decent control. I wouldn't say it's perfect. You know, I can't really draw with it like I'd like, but it's pretty good. A little clear on the glasses here. Oh, line under the nose. So you see, for the finer details, definitely feel a little more comfortable with this 0.01. But again, all of those together is really going to give you the best kind of inking, I think. You know, and really, I think the best inking comes from an actual brush, an actual crow quill. But if you don't want to learn those and you're not ready for all that, these are a good alternative. So you got the Tombow pens, you got the Microns, and the Uniball whiteout. They're not even on the camera, sorry. And there you go. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's giving you an idea how you could try to generate some inks like this and play around with it. Oh, I just realized I didn't get the other side of the glasses. Hold on, folks. I don't want nobody calling me out on that. There we go. That's a bit better. All right. And those are frameless glasses, by the way. All right, so thanks very much for tuning in and watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. More content's on the way very soon. And as always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.